For this video, we will be exploring both sides of the Potomac. What's wonderful about this area, the Great Falls of the Potomac, is that you have your Maryland side and your Virginia side. Both are parks. Now you see that white building way back there amongst the trees? Well, that's a museum, and that's where we're going to start the day out. This is Great Falls, Maryland. So we are going to start our exploration on the Maryland side of the Great Falls. I can't wait. I love museums, I love learning, and I especially love exploring. Now here we are in the museum, and what I want you to understand most about this side is that it's famous for its canal. Now the sign that I showed you coming into this area talked about the Virginia side and how George Washington had worked on the canals on that side of the river. But on this side, I personally feel that the canals are more pronounced. So, loving this museum. That's my kind of sign. I love to touch. Another thing I love about museums is that usually that means I can find something to take home. I'm always on the lookout for magnets wherever I go. Magnets and postcards. This place did not disappoint. So this is a cool pin. Let's turn it into a magnet. Yay! I am so excited. I got a ticket. I'm going to take a canal boat ride. These tickets are fantastic. There's a perforation and you rip it off and you keep a postcard. And there's the boat. Can't wait. So much fun. We're going to get to do the canal ride. What a treat.
How many of you are here for a boat ride? Great. So we're about to get started here. For how many of you is this your first time on the boat? Lots of first timers, that's great. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm gonna be back here piloting the boat from the back, steering. It's my first time too, so excuse me if things don't go smoothly. We have a couple rules for getting on the boat, and the first rule is to stay in the boat. Okay, that's the most important thing you can do today is stay in the boat. It's kind of warm out here. It's not nice after a swim. Okay, staying in the boat means keeping your whole body in the boat, but it also means keeping your hands and your head and your ears and your noses in the boat too. When we get into the lock, a lot of you are going to want to reach out and to touch the lock walls. Fight that urge, okay? That's not good. We don't want anybody losing a finger, okay? We want everybody to leave with the same number of fingers that you start with. Maybe an extra finger, but no less fingers than you started with. It's also a safety thing for us folks on the boat. We're gonna be walking along on the outside of the boat. So if you reach out, okay, and you don't know that we're behind you, you might push us in. And taking a swim in the lock is a thing I don't want to do today. Okay. So please stay in the boat. Our other important thing is I see them a lot already is a lot of you have smartphones. A smartphone is great for taking a picture. It's good for taking a video. But if you want to start Skyping with your niece and nephew in Indiana, please wait until after the ride is over. Okay? So please put your phone on silent or vibrate, or better yet, you can even turn it off. Okay? When this boat was operational, well, when this canal was operational, there are lots of people who went through life without ever getting a tweet. except for maybe a bird. Okay? So please put the phones away unless you're using them for a picture or a video. A couple other rules that might not have been historic is we don't allow tobacco on the boat. Okay, so you're not going to see any of us smoking on the boat, even though you might see it in the video in the tavern. The tavern also, the canal company had them stop serving alcohol in 1850. Okay, and in the spirit of that tradition, there's no alcohol allowed on the boat either. Okay, there's no gambling on the boat. It's not a river boat. We're not on the Mississippi. We're not on the Missouri River. No gambling on the boat, so I don't want to see any card playing, any dice throwing. There are ladies present, so there's no cussing on the boat today. Gentlemen, you have to come back on a different day. Okay. Anybody have any questions before we get started? So if you look at your ticket, it has two parts to it. One side is a nice, pretty postcard, and the other side says admit one. So if you want to fold that on the perforation, you can tear off the admit one part, and you're going to hand that to me, and you're going to keep that postcard for yourself as a souvenir. When you get on the boat, the stairs take you in two directions, takes you upstairs and downstairs. I recommend going upstairs. You're going to get a nice view there. You're going to be able to hear Wilbur, who's up top of the boat with you today. Everybody say hi to Wilbur. Hi, Wilbur. Howdy, folks. So I recommend going upstairs and find yourself a seat. During the trip, if you want to get up and move around and get a better view, that's okay. But when we're coming into the lock and when we're locking through, you're going to want to sit down because it can get a little bumpy, especially when I'm driving. Okay? So tear off that admit one part, hand it to me, and find your seat. Welcome aboard, everybody.
There's plenty of room over here. Invented lock gates. Yes, Mr. Da Vinci was a very busy man. When he wasn't painting, he was inventing things. So the way the lock gates work, Da Vinci figured out that if you had gates that formed kind of a V as they're facing upstream, the water pressure will hold them closed. But you had to have some way to let water through, and Mr. Da Vinci thought of this. Put little doors in the bottom that are controlled by these rods at the top. We call that a sluice gate. And what you will see happening in this lock is we will go in, the lock gate behind us will close, so that's like putting the plug in the clock in your bathtub. And then when we're ready to move up, we will shout, lock ready, and the canal worker when we're ready to go up, they will turn those rods, opening gates, paddle at the bottom of the lock gate, the water will go up and lift it up. Rise 8 feet. Every lock on the C&O Canal, all locks were built to a standard design. They are one.
Now, I don't know how many of you have ridden on a canal boat before. I never had, and so this is exciting. I could not believe as we entered each lock and they would fill the lock up with water, we would actually rise a difference of 8 to 10 feet higher than we were. So we'd start here, and then the water would start pouring in, and we would rise and rise and rise. People that were above us started coming closer and closer and closer. You could gauge the way, how high you had risen by the people around you. It was amazing. People that had been above you, soon actually below you. It was unique and fantastic and an experience I'm so, so glad I could be a part of.
The canal was their vision was this was going to be.
And yes, just as it was 100 years ago and more, we were being pulled by mules. Well, here I'm going to be quiet and let you just enjoy some of the trip as well.
Because they can go just as far as the rope allows them to go. And in case you think I'm making that up, I have a photo. And you can see some children, and they are indeed wearing one of these things.
We did it with our middle son, and we didn't have a boat.
Could you just pass that along so everybody can get it? Just pass it down. Now, when your child is old enough to walk beside the mules, that's going to be their job. You need to have someone walking beside the mules because growing next to the towpath, the entire 184.5 miles, is grass. And what do mules and horses and cows to do? Important maintenance on the canal. They would drain the water out, and then they could check to see if any holes were developing. And if they were developing, they could stuff them with clay. Clay is relatively impervious to water, so that was sort of how they sealed the bottom of the canal, is packing it with clay. The canal gets drained.
Before we knew it, we were back and getting off of the canal ride, but oh my goodness, I will never forget it. It was absolutely wonderful. All right, now let's go to the Virginia side. Now the Virginia side is not as tame as the Maryland side. In fact, are you ready for this? This is where the actual falls can be seen. Now the pathways here are nicely done, just as on the Maryland side, but every so often there's a shootout going to your left, and once you get a little too far to the left, that's when it can get a bit precarious. The terrain turns rocky, the view becomes more spectacular. They've even had to build some guardrails to be, just to promote safety, because wow, you are there, you're looking down at the water, and it is awesome. And there are sections where you can look across and see where you were walking before on the Maryland side. So the walk is beautiful, and there's all kinds of educational placards available to see as you go along, and the view just continues to take your breath away. It is an absolutely beautiful side of the river. I really love how state parks are invested in not only bringing the beauty to you of the natural surroundings, but educating you on the past. Love that. I love both sides, I guess, of this coin. Just another reason I love state parks. It was amazing to see how high the water had gotten this area before during different storms. Amazing. So yes, the hiking on this side is a little more rugged, a little more having to look down, watch where you're going to place your feet, that sort of thing. But it is worth it. It's beautiful. I don't know, it's just one of those things that you feel good after having been there. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. I think being outside replenishes us. It lifts us up. It makes us more of who we actually are, or maybe who we should be. And there you have it, the tour of both sides of the Potomac. After seeing both sides, I hope you love it all the more. I do.